KATSEYE's latest song is called Internet Girl, and it features lyrics like "Eat zucchini, like the emoji."
Eat zucchini, eat zucchini.
And while it's true that not every song has to have some type of like deep and profound meaning, these lyrics are just particularly bad in an objective way. My theory is that Hybe, a billion-dollar company, having their artists sing lyrics that really make no sense and have inherently zero lyrical value, I think it's intentional, because if they have all of their resources at their disposal, yet they're still creating these lyrics, I think that there is a purpose. And I think that these lyrics, like, they sound like they were created by artificial intelligence. And so
When the conversation around KATSEYE tends tense or emotional, it's rarely because people doubt the group's talent. That part has always been obvious. These are performers who endured an intense global selection process, relocated their lives, trained under extreme pressure, and came out the other side polished, disciplined, and visibly capable. Their existence as a group is already proof of competence. What continues to frustrate people is not who they are, but what they are being turned into. The gap between ability and output has become impossible to ignore. KATSEYE was built with elite infrastructure, industry backing, and a global strategy designed to create longevity. Yet their music keeps pulling attention away from their strengths instead of highlighting them. Instead of vocal moments, the discourse centers on lyrics that feel unserious. Instead of performance, the focus shifts to irony, shock, and gimmicks. This creates a strange imbalance where the group looks smaller than it actually is. This is where Adela enters the conversation, not as a competitor, but as a contrast. Adela exited the system early, and by industry logic, that should have been the end of her relevance. She did not debut with a major group. She did not receive a massive marketing rollout. She did not have the security of an established machine behind her. Yet her post-show trajectory tells a very different story. Her releases are being discussed as music rather than content. Her work is framed around intention, tone, and identity rather than virality. Adela's singles, including Death by Devotion and Machine Girl, have not relied on irony to carry them. They stand on atmosphere, vocal presence, and a sense of direction that feels deliberate. Her momentum is modest on paper, but it is clean. The conversation around her focuses on growth, not confusion. That distinction matters more than numbers at this stage. It signals sustainability. During the survival show era, Adela was often framed as difficult or ungrateful. In hindsight, that framing looks less like a personality flaw and more like friction with a system that prioritized compliance over honesty. The rules shifted, the expectations blurred, and those who responded emotionally or critically were quietly punished. Adela's refusal to flatten herself into something palatable became her exit point, and paradoxically, her freedom. KATSEYE, by contrast, remained inside the system, and that decision came with consequences that are now visible. Their music increasingly feels engineered to perform well online rather than represent who they are. Viral success has been mistaken for validation. Each release leans further into irony, repetition, and shock, shrinking the space for genuine artistry. With Gnarly, people let that slide, but Internet Girly just feels like it's robotic. Fearless saying it sounds like AI made it. Also, the sexual reference of zucchini, which people use to represent D, and then promoting it just feels off. This dynamic creates frustration rather than excitement. The group is not failing, they are being constrained. Watching performers with this level of preparation deliver material that obscures their strength feels less like experimentation and more like intentional limitation. That tension is the foundation of the current backlash, and it has nothing to do with hatred. The shift from artistry to algorithm is rarely dramatic. It happens quietly, one decision at a time, until repetition replaces expression and attention replaces intention. In KATSEYE's pace, that shift became noticeable with Nolly, a song that lent heavily on irony and shock while sidelining the group's actual abilities. At the time, it was dismissed as quirky, unserious fun. The virality softened the criticism. That moment set a precedent. Instead of treating the response as a warning, the label appeared to treat it as permission. The bar lowered, the output narrowed. When Internet Girl followed, the pattern was no longer subtle. Repetition dominated. Lyrics felt engineered for screenshots rather than listening. The novelty that once felt ironic hardened into something uncomfortable. What initially passed as playful began to read as careless. The controversy surrounding certain lyrical implications and production choices did not emerge from thin air. Producers publicly admitting to adding shock value for spice reinforced the perception that provocation mattered more than responsibility. When such decisions intersect with youth, the discomfort becomes justified. That reaction was not prudish or reactionary, it was a natural response to boundaries being tested for engagement. What makes this especially damaging is how effectively it hides talent. Heavy vocal processing, looping phrases, and minimalist structures do not showcase range, emotion, or growth. They turn trained performers into background texture for a soundbite. Over time, that erosion builds resentment, not loyalty. Fans begin separating affection for the members from support for the music, which is a dangerous split for any artist. Meanwhile, Adela's trajectory continues to highlight what alignment looks like. Her work feels personal rather than committee-approved. She speaks directly, explains her choices, and carries a sense of authorship. Her presence reads as human, not optimized. That authenticity is why her smaller releases generate genuine discussion rather than defensive discourse. Industry recognition complicates the picture further. Award nominations and accolades arriving in the absence of a strong body of work create cognitive dissonance. Praise feels disconnected from experience. Instead of validating the music, it amplifies the sense that the industry is rewarding itself rather than responding to quality. This disconnect risks turning KATSEYE into a symbol of excess rather than excellence. The most troubling part is that the consequences will not land on the decision makers. If momentum slows, the narrative will quietly shift toward blaming the performers. That pattern is familiar. Visibility absorbs criticism. Power remains untouched. The girls become the face of choices they did not make. None of this suggests KATSEYE lacks potential. It suggests the opposite. Their current direction feels like a misuse of resources, talent, and time. Adela's escape from the system now reads less like failure and more like preservation. She left with her identity intact. KATSEYE is still fighting to protect theirs. This situation remains reversible, but only if the system prioritizes respect over reach. Talent does not vanish. It gets buried. Whether KATSEYE is remembered for what they could do or for what was done to them will depend entirely on who is allowed to steer the ship going forward. See you on the next one, guys.